Welcome to episode 70 of the 2 Minute Warning. Today on the table, our first basketball-related video.
Yeah.
Congratulations to us. CP3 going to the Phoenix Suns. Is that going to happen, and what does that mean for the Suns if he does?
I'm just going to go off speculation and say it is. I mean, for that random team to really come up out of nowhere, there has to be some seriousness within it. I mean, we talked about possibly we heard about CP3 possibly going to the Lakers. I think if he goes to the Suns for the Lakers move, the Derrick Rose trade to the Lakers is going to become much more likely because the Lakers themselves need a ball handler, so LeBron's not always point guard. But to focus on CP3 and the Suns, I do think if it happens, the Suns are definitely going to the playoffs. I mean, Chirs Paul on his own brought the Thunder pretty much by himself to the 5th seed last year and almost beat the Houston Rockets in the first round, took it to 7 games. And I think with a young star, Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton at center, Devin Booker is one of the best shooting guards in the league. DeAndre Ayton's a great rising center. I just don't see them not making playoffs and not doing some damage depending who they match up first round.
Yeah, I'm going to hold off actually on calling it now, like saying if he's going to the Suns or not. There's definitely other teams I think on the board that would want CP3. And I know that the Thunder still want him as well because he obviously did so much better for them than they even anticipated this year, leading them to the playoffs. One thing I think is interesting is that Chirs Paul's contract is projected to make about $80+ million over the next 2 years. Yeah, which would be a good cause for the Thunder to want to move him if they were to go into a rebuild this year. But I certainly think if CP3 were to get to the Suns and complement Booker, Ayton, and whoever they would still have on that roster after a trade, that roster alone would be better than the Thunder roster that he had last year. Yeah. So I think that the Suns would definitely be a team to reckon with, and CP3 already has good connections with Monty Williams from his days as a Hornet in New Orleans. So I definitely think that a CP3 Suns move is intriguing, and it would be really cool to see, honestly, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be a good move for OKC, especially since they're going into a really major rebuilding year. They would get his contract off the books, probably have a lot of extra space to sign different guys. They would get a couple young guys and probably a higher draft pick or something like that for him. So I think that would be a decent move for them. But for the Suns, I think it would be a really good move because we saw they did pretty well last year, except for the middle of the season with the injuries. Other than that, I think they were, what were they in the bubble, 8-0 or 9-0 or something?
Undefeated, right?
Yeah, they were undefeated.
Yeah, they were undefeated.
So, I mean, the beginning of the season, end of the season, they looked well. I believe they had some injuries right there in the middle, which kind of hurt them. But I think that CP3 added to that team would definitely take them to the playoffs, and they would do pretty well.
I think, yeah, CP3 being able just to work with DeAndre Ayton and still be able to facilitate to Devin Booker and let him get his and create would be huge for the Suns. And I know, like, even more than a Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton combo, a CP3 with Ayton running the pick and roll would be just a terror in the West, which, I mean, the West is still going to be loaded, but I think that combo would, work well together, in my opinion. So
Yeah, a couple things. Of course, if the Suns do make this happen with CP3, I guess it would definitely add to their roster. The Thunder do owe him like $41 million just coming up here, and then another 44 with a player option the year after. So the Suns will have to take that in, however that is dealt with. And of course, if they pick up CP3, regardless, they'll have to deal with some good teams in the West, such as the Clippers, the Lakers, the GOAT, Nuggets, Jamal Murray, one of the greatest players we've ever seen. So this won't necessarily make the Suns automatically a finals contender.
The Warriors coming back also,
right.
Steph Curry.
But like you mentioned, the ties with Chirs Paul and Monty Williams back in New Orleans, this would kind of make sense with him.
And another thing that would make Chirs Paul, I think, want to go there is that the Suns are just going to put in a new, $44 million, practice facility. They're renovating their stadium. Yeah. And on top of that, they've got $20 million in cap space this summer to sign more people if they were to make a trade. So I think all of those combined makes Phoenix
attractive to Chirs Paul. Why would he want to go there?
Yeah, a good trade destination.
Now, I know more of a football standpoint about age. Chirs Paul's 35. I don't know how old that is relative to the rest of the league.
It's old.
He's getting a little older, So
he proved this year that he could still play at a very high level.
And they do have the Suns do have a younger team, so an older veteran leader might help them even more.
It will. Yeah, it will. Because right now they had, like, their only veterans were guys like Ricky Rubio, you know, like Aaron Baines, like those guys. They're not nearly as good of veterans as Chirs Paul would be. So I think they would. It would only boost their chances of succeeding in the playoffs, which I already thought that next year they would have been a playoff team. If it wasn't for their bad seeding going into the bubble, they would have made it. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Right now, since the season is starting in late December, we should be getting towards the trades and the free agency period is going to come up pretty soon. So it's going to be something cool to keep an eye on, and even if the Thunder even want to trade him, because they might want to keep him and try to maybe go at it again next year. We'll see what happens, but
I think the Suns are kind of taking the standpoint of what the Raptors did a few years ago for Kawhi Leonard. They're just they knew trading for Kawhi Leonard, they didn't know how long they would keep him, but they knew they would have him at least for a limited time, and they went for it all in just 1 year, and it panned out, and they won the championship. I think the Suns are kind of going with the same method. They don't know what Chirs Paul has left long term, or how determined he is to go to Phoenix, but they know he has some gas in the tank, and they're just going to go for it all short term, and it might work out. Well, we don't really know. Long term, it could not pay off, but short term, they win the finals, they win the championship. Everything paid off
for everybody. Really.
I think it comes down to how much CP3 wants to stay in OKC. So
how long he's only been there for?
1 year.
1 year, yeah.
He may still say screw that and I want to play with LeBron. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Anything could really happen, but it's definitely interesting to see what will happen with the Sun.
All right.
Sounds
I have
good.
to wait and see CP3.